What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'm going to go over a couple players that I think you should be looking to involve in trades this week. I'll sort of try and split it up a little bit, just sort of commenting on how you should let your record play into that. I think that when you get to this time of the season, it's really important to make note that there are some players that you probably really shouldn't be trading for if you're 2-6. Like, you shouldn't be trading for an injured player if you're sitting at 2-5, as to where if you're 5-2, maybe you can trade for that injured superstar because he's going to be back for your playoff push. But there's plenty of different nuances, but I always think that trading is one of the best ways to make your teams better. It's one of the most fun things to do in fantasy. I frequently try to send out trade offers and be as involved and active in trades in my leagues as possible, just because I feel like it's sort of the best way for me to make my teams better. I sort of take that shotgun approach and just trust that I'm going to win more than half of those trades. And in general, it works out for me, but not always. But that's part of the fun here. So before I do get into the video, I just want to take a minute to thank everybody for all the support. I believe we're at 299 subscribers right now, so super close to that 300. I think the next one of you that does that will be the 300 subscribers. That'll be super exciting. I want to thank everybody again for all that support. If this is your first time on the channel, I want to thank you for stopping by. Please do take a minute to like the video if you get anything out of it. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel. You can click the notification bell so you get notifications when more videos come out. We do 3 videos every single week. We do a waiver wire video, a trade video, and then a start sit video. But like I said, if this is your first time on the channel, thank you. If you've been here all the whole time, thank you as well. It's been really awesome watching the channel grow. But yeah, with that, let's get into the first player. The first player I want to go over here is going to be Lamar Jackson. I'm really targeting Lamar in trades this week. I think he's a really screaming buy low for me. He's coming off of several consecutive bad weeks, but I'm not really worried about that at all. His pass catch has been really banged up. He's been missing Bateman for pretty much the last month. I know Bateman was back this last week, but he didn't seem to be completely himself. And obviously Mark Andrews looks banged up as well this last week. So it's just been tough sledding for these Ravens. They've really had a tough time moving the ball. Their offense doesn't look great, but I think it's definitely going to get much better when these guys get healthy. And obviously, even if this offense doesn't move the ball very effectively, Lamar offers you just a really high floor with his rushing ability. There are going to be several weeks this season, where Lamar just wins you your matchup because he has 300 passing yards and 100 rushing yards. And it's hard to win your fantasy matchup when that kind of quarterback performance shows up against you. So I think it's really important this year to make sure you have one of those top tier quarterbacks. It's going to be really hard to win your championship because eventually you're going to run into a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes performance, and you don't have one of those guys. So Lamar Jackson seems like one of those guys that could easily be a top 5 quarterback this season. He might even still be. I think he is the quarterback 5 on the season so far. So I think he really does slide right up in that tier, probably right below Jalen Hurts. So you've got Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar's probably the quarterback 4 rest of the season. So Lamar's going to be an elite quarterback, and I don't think you've got to pay all that much for him. I didn't have to pay too much for him last week in a league I traded for him. I traded AMON-RA St. Brown and James Robinson for Lamar and Ezekiel Elliott. So that's sort of the kind of trade I'd be okay making. I'd be okay making that same trade again this week. So I'm really targeting Lamar. That was my most competitive, highest buy-in league. So I take that league extremely seriously and was really comfortable making that trade. So I'm all in on getting Lamar. I think he's going to be really great for you the rest of the season. And he's got a really nice playoff schedule. He gets to play Cleveland, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh to close the stretch in weeks 15, 16, and 17. So I expect 3 really strong performances there. And I'm not really scared of any of those defenses, and you really, especially if you've got a really good record, it's definitely time to start looking towards the playoffs and see which of these players can help you to really put your team over the top come playoff time. So it's getting time where you want to start looking at those playoff schedules and see which players are going to be the best for you. The next player I want to talk about is going to be Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen's a pretty screaming buy low as well because he's pretty much done nothing all season, but I still think he's going to be a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 after the bye. He's obviously an extremely talented player, and he's tied to Justin Herbert at quarterback. So this is going to be an offense that scores plenty. They're throwing the ball at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Their defense is also pretty bad, so they're going to have to continue to put up points and if they want to be competitive. And obviously, this is a team with aspirations of going deep into the playoffs, so they're going to do their best to make sure they keep putting up points. And Justin Herbert doesn't give me any reason to believe they won't be able to do that. And Keenan Allen's going to be a big part of that, especially given that Mike Williams, we saw him come down with a high ankle sprain this last week. So Mike Williams is going to miss some time. It sounds like the report was weeks, not days. So I'd expect Mike Williams to miss about 3 games after this bye. So you're going to get a nice stretch where Keenan Allen is really the only target that Justin Herbert can look at. Obviously, Eckler and Gerald Everett will be involved as well, along with Joshua Palmer. But Keenan Allen's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in this offense, even if Mike Williams is there. Their playoff schedule is great. They get to play the Titans, the Colts, and the Rams. So those are 3 defenses that really don't scare you. You can beat all 3 of those guys through the air. And like I said, Keenan Allen's going to be a guy that you probably won't have to pay that much for because the manager that has him is probably really struggling. He's on bye this week. They're not 100% confident he'll be healthy after the bye. I'm pretty sure he'll be fine. He played this last week and he gets 2 weeks to rest up more. But I could see the manager that has him being 2-5, 3-4, and really looking to getting themselves a player that can help them this week because he's on bye, and he'd definitely be a guy I'm targeting there. If you are 5-2 or 6-1, I'm also really excited about targeting Mike Williams. I know he's going to miss about that month probably, but Mike Williams has been a high-end wide receiver so far. He's been like a low-end wide receiver one. He's just a player that, again, he's going to have week-winning performances, and you're not going to have to pay that much for him. If the Mike Williams manager in your league is 3-4, 2-5, even 4-3, they might be willing to move him just because they know they're not going to have him, and they really want to make sure that they do make the playoffs. So if you've got a really good record, definitely start looking around and seeing if you can get Mike Williams on your roster as well. The next player I want to talk about is going to be Dalton Schultz. He does finally seem to be getting healthy. He had a 68% target share snap share this last week, so that's really exciting to see him get on the field. I'm really glad he's healing up well. And Dak absolutely loves Dalton Schultz. He's got 14 targets for the 2 games that they've played together. He's caught 12 of those 14 targets. They're really generally high efficiency targets as well. And he honestly could have had a much better week this last week. I believe he caught 5 balls for 43 yards. And he'd just been rotated out in a couple sets and happened to not be in there when they threw that touchdown to I forget the tight end's name. It wasn't Ferguson either. But point being, they're involving the tight end. Dak loves throwing to Dalton Schultz a bunch. They're going to be an offense that scores quite a few points. And the tight end position's a wasteland. I think a lot of us did have high expectations for Dalton Schultz coming into this year, and he hasn't obviously lived up to that. But I think you can sort of expect what you were hoping for coming into the year going forward. He's going to be their number 2 or number 3 target. Maybe Michael Gallup will step up, but for now, it looks like Dalton Schultz is the number 2 to CeeDee Lamb in this offense. And I mean, it's going to be an offense that scores points. They probably won't be as explosive as we hoped because their defense is really good. But Dalton Schultz is going to get enough volume and he'll score a couple touchdowns. I think you could count on him to be a top 5 tight end the rest of the way. And you're not going to have to pay that much for him. They've got a pretty nice playoff schedule as well. 2 of those 3 matchups are really nice. They get Jacksonville, which is a nice matchup, then Philadelphia and Tennessee. So you don't love that Philadelphia matchup, but I mean, like I said, the Philadelphia is going to be a team that scores points on them as well, so at least have to keep up. So all 3 of those matchups are certainly reasonable, and he's going to be a guy that I think can really help you out with the tight end position going forward. And the next guy I want to go over for a buy low is going to be AMON-RA St. Brown. He actually made this list last week, and I think we sort of got a blessing in disguise. Not really, because you hate to see a player leave the game early, but if you didn't manage to get him last week, I think you have another opportunity here, because he really hasn't done anything since week 3. He had 6 for 73 in week 3, and then he was banged up, and he hasn't performed since then because he's been either limited or not playing at all due to injury. So I think a lot of fantasy managers with him are pretty frustrated. They're probably super excited after those first 3 weeks, and then they've been just super let down over the last 5. But there's no reason to believe that he's anything less than 100% going forward. He didn't even have a concussion last week. He was just ruled out due to the new health and safety protocols. So obviously great they're taking care of the player, but there's no reason to worry about him going forward with that. And the Lions defense still sucks. They're going to have to put up a lot of points if they want to be competitive in games. AMON-RA St. Brown's going to be a huge part of that. And this offense should get better going forward. They're going to get DeAndre Swift back at some point, and Jameson Williams is going to be involved as well. Jameson Williams is going to really help open up things underneath for him as well because he's just going to take the top off the defense, and they're going to have to respect that more. So there might even be more room for AMON-RA to perform when Jameson Williams come back. And their playoff schedule is pretty nice. They get the Jets, Panthers, and Bears. Neither one of those 3 teams really scares me in terms of a defense that could shut him down. So I think AMON-RA's in line for, honestly, wide receiver 1 numbers the rest of the season. And I think a lot of people are just sort of fed up with him being an inactive or a mid-game departure. So go get AMON-RA St. Brown. I think a lot of people that have him are frustrated, and he's going to be a really great play the rest of the season. The first sell high for me this week, unfortunately, is going to have to be Aaron Jones. He's just not getting running back 1 usage. He only had 8 carries for 23 yards this last week, and this last week was really the first week that we've seen him be as involved in the receiving game as we'd hoped for. He caught 9 passes for 53 yards and managed to come up with 2 touchdowns there. So that's obviously a really awesome performance, but I just don't think it's something that's going to continue. This Packers offense just looks absolutely brutal, and their schedule doesn't look much better. They're going to play the Bills this next week, and they're probably going to get absolutely trounced in that one. I expect a pretty bad performance out of pretty much everybody on this Packers offense, so you're going to lose out on that sell high window here. I think you can still sell Aaron Jones as a running back 1, and to me, he's more of a mid-tier running back 2 the rest of the season. He's going to have a couple blow-up weeks because that's what Aaron Jones does, but he's not getting that elite wide receiver or pass-catching usage volume that we expected him to get, and he's still splitting quite a few carries with A.J. Dillon. This offense is far worse than we thought it was going to be as well, so there's just a lot of red flags around Aaron Jones, and he's coming off of a really great game, so I'd be looking to get out of there. I mean, I think Aaron Jones is a fine play. He's not a guy that you don't want on your roster, but, like, he's not gonna be that fantasy superstar you drafted him to be, and he did put up that superstar performance this last week. So I'd look to move him and sell high on that narrative, especially given that we did see AJ Dillon's usage drop quite a bit this last week as well. So I think you can sell that to the manager that you're trying to trade Aaron Jones to. I'd try and get another high-end running back 2, and then maybe another wide receiver thrown in there, or even just a high-end running back too, I'd definitely do Aaron Jones for. The next sell high for me is going to be Jerry Jeudy. He's coming off of a career high 7 receptions, which is honestly kind of sad that ties a career high for him. But that's been sort of the start of the career of Jerry Jeudy. That's been the Broncos' offense is just not capable of supporting 3 pass catching options, and it seems like Sutton and Dulcich are going to be the number 1 and number 2 options there. Russ obviously loves Cortland Sutton, and he certainly seemed to like throwing the ball to Greg Dulcich. Greg Dulcich looks pretty good. I certainly think that Dulcich and Jeudy are at least a 2A, 2B situation going forward, and this Broncos offense just can hardly support even 1 wide receiver. Maybe things get better, but I'm not going to bet on it. They look horrible. Hackett seems to be over his skis. Russ isn't playing like himself. He's playing hurt. So I'm worried about this whole Broncos offense. I don't really want any part of it. And I think you can maybe sell high on the potential. I mean, you can call it a breakout of Jerry Jeudy, saying that he had 7 for 96 and that this Broncos offense is going to figure out how to use him and turn it around. But I really don't see that happening. Did have a great game this last week, so I think you can sell high on that. And there are the potential trade rumors surrounding him. There are mentions of him being traded to teams like the Packers or the Giants, although I don't know that the Giants makes him any better. But the fact of the matter is you could try and sell high on the fact that there's at least a non-zero chance he gets traded to some other team and his situation improves. But in reality, he's going to stay in Denver. He's going to be their number 2 or number 3 passing option on a bad offense, and he's not going to be a guy you really want to start ever in fantasy. So if you can trade him for someone you can start every single week, you got to do it. Next guy I want to talk about is going to be DIONTAE Johnson. I've really not been high on DIONTAE Johnson since the draft process and even pre-draft this season. I don't have anything against DIONTAE Johnson, the player, but I just think that he's going to be an extremely inefficient player, just given the nature of the offense. This is a quarterback that's not very great, either Pickett or Mitch Trubisky. Pickens honestly seems like he might be the better receiver in Pittsburgh, and honestly Claypool looks okay as well. And Pickett is also highly targeting Pat Freiermuth, so it just seems like there's a lot of mouths to feed in this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and there's not a lot of production overall. So there's a really small pie being divided up amongst a lot of players. So it's just hard to really trust any Pittsburgh Steeler other than like Najee and Freiermuth every single week, and even Najee's gross. So I don't love playing any one of these guys. They play the Philadelphia Eagles this week, so they're going to have a really tough time. Then they're on bye, so you probably don't want to start DIONTAE Johnson this week, and then you can't play him next week. And I mean, I don't know when you're ever going to trust him because this offense is just so brutal and that you don't have any sort of clarity there. I suppose the one potential way he gets better is if Claypool gets traded and a little bit of the targets get shifted, but I don't think that's going to be enough to make me confident in him. He's been a top 30 wide receiver just once so far this season, so to me, he's like a low-end wide receiver 3 the rest of the season, and he's still got that name value. You can probably trade him for like a wide receiver 2. I would love to trade him for like a Christian Kirk even, or maybe people are worried about Michael Pittman, or there are plenty of receivers that I'd much rather have than him. And I mean, honestly, he's just not a guy that I think I can trust starting every single week going forward. So if you can find better options, somebody's going to like DIONTAE Johnson in your league, and I'd just be loving to move him here. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.